If anybody out there in the Dopey Nation is good at like cutting up audio, why don't you hit us up? We will hand over the Dopey archives to you, and you can create a little audio collage. What? You want to do something with those one-liners?
So this is like a chopped and screwed episode.
That's what we'll call it, the chopped and screwed episode. Do whatever you can do to not die, especially if you're like big in the Dopey Nation community. Yeah. Because I don't want to hear about anybody else dying. It makes me sad.
Maybe you should start a podcast
called "Don't Die."
Called "Don't Die."
Yeah, I've been thinking about starting a podcast called "Don't Die."
All right, this is my friend Dave, CrossFit trainer.
You hold it. I don't know.
That's your phone.
Hello.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, what's up, man?
How you doing, bud?
I'm good. All right.
What's up, my brother?
What's going on?
Nothing, just chilling.
I just want to warn you. I just told a story that doesn't make any sense, but Chris is like on drugs. he's like past the time of expiration.
Is he rocking back and forth?
He's got that fucking zombie stare going, and his hair looks funny. He's in the zone.
Dave's been dressing me down with his eyes, like showing disapproval.
But how are you? It's more important. It's way more important.
I'm all right. I went to a meeting earlier. Had kind of a bummer of a day. I'm at my friend's house now.
You're not all right, Dave. Let's just get that out there.
No, I've had better days. That's for sure.
You're gonna the way you train your body, you're gonna train your spirit and your mind, and you're gonna be fucking a raging sober freak.
I think that's a really good point, Dave. Is like, take how you apply yourself physically and do that spiritually, man.
And mentally.
Well, I'm trying to. That's kind of multiple people have said that to me. In the rooms and stuff, and I'm just I try to do everything like that. Business wise, training, rugby, everything. Just you either do it or you don't. What's the point of doing anything? Kind of.
Yeah. Totally, man.
We're sorry you're in pain, though.
Yeah.
Anything that I could ever do, Dave, just don't hesitate to call. For real.
I know, I won't.
All right, man. Thank you for calling in, Dave. I hope everything, do what you got to do. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing to say anymore. You know the deal.
Yeah, I'll be all right. I know what to do.
Right on.
Okay. All right.
I know what to do.
All right, I love you, dude.
All right, love you guys. Stay
Love you
strong,
too.
Dopey Nation.
All right, later.
Stay strong, Dopey
Later.
Nation.
Later.
I want to say that we're in this fancy hotel in the Lower East Side, but we have way more important business than that.
Well, we should describe the settings first. I mean, it doesn't have to be so heavy.
It's very heavy.
It's heavy. You just keep it light.
It's not light. It's very, very heavy. It should not be treated lightly. One of our listeners and friends, one of Chris's old... how long did you know him for?
Since 2011.
So Chris's friend since 2011. My friend for the last year died 2 weeks ago? A week and a half ago?
Something like that, yeah.
He overdosed.
And he was on the show.
He was on the show 3 times. He's like the most cautionary tale of a drug-related death. He was kind, incredibly handsome,
intelligent,
incredibly smart, fit as the most fit person in the world.
He was a tough guy, but then there was this huge dichotomy with being this really sensitive person too. And the reason I said in the beginning, keep it light, is that's to honor Dave. And it's like, I also intentionally tried to do that when we went out to eat after, was to make jokes and stuff. Because that's the type of person Dave was, is he was funny. And that's why he liked Dopey.
Of course.
It's sad and it's horrible, of course. And it's I feel bad because I didn't really feel much at first. And I still don't. I don't feel really deeply over it. I think about it every once in a while. But it's mostly and I said this to you when we were by ourselves, it's mostly in a year I'll think of him, and then in 2 years, and then it's in 10 years, and I'll be more sad at those points because I'll realize he's been dead this whole time.
He didn't get that time.
He doesn't have that time, and he would have been doing some pretty cool stuff.
The bottom line is that Dave didn't get the chance because of this. Yeah. And the other thing, and the reason that I totally get keeping it light, and that Dave was all about having fun and being funny and all that stuff. But we do a podcast on the lighter side of drug addiction, on the dark comedy of addiction tales, or whatever you want to fucking call it. And here we have one, he was a committed listener. He played Dopey in his gym every week. He made the people working out listen to it, and they laughed about the drug addiction, and now he's dead. So I'm not saying it shouldn't be light. I'm saying, everybody who's listening,
what we say with the reality of drug addiction.
We make this comedy show about the funniest parts of using drugs and being an addict. And I like the funny parts of recovery, too. I think they're super funny.
Yeah.
But I just want to make it clear that it's very, very easy to die getting high. We're going to call this guy Andrew, the guy that you met at Mountainside. Let's try him out. Hey, dude.
Well, hello there.
So what's going on?
I feel like I need to redeem myself a little bit, at least from my portrayal in the last call. Like, I don't think it was a total shit show this summer. I for the most part, did pretty well. It just had a pretty bad ending. I'm a little bit sensitive about that hippie word.
You're a fucking hippie. What do you want from me? You lived on a farm picking huckleberries in the woods. This is the biggest hippie in the world. Huckleberry farming?
Jeez.
Come on, listen.
See, because my introduction, so my introduction to this, counterculture, whatever, was actually when I was in the program in sobriety in Colorado, and I met these, train hopper dudes, and was introduced into that life, into the life of, being on the, and whatever, and I don't know, that culture very much distinguishes itself from the, rainbow, hippie.
Right. Okay, so you're not the hippie, you're a train hopper?
No, he's more of a hobo.
I have, yes, that is what I would identify with more. All right, well, Dopey Nation, stay strong.
All right, you fucking hippie. We'll see you later.
He's a hobo. Leave him alone. Leave him alone. We'll talk to you soon, bud. Bye-bye. So we have a very, 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 very tragic piece of news, which is that Andrew, from 2 episodes ago, episode 110, died.
Hippie hobo Andrew.
He died yesterday.
Yeah. It's a somber moment in Dopey history.
It's fucking tragic. It's horrible.
It's fucked up. The reality of the situation is that this is going to continually happen.
People are going to keep dying. And the really fucked up thing is that Andrew was doing good. You know what I'm saying? Andrew went to treatment. Yeah. Andrew got a Vivitrol shot. I met with Andrew on Wednesday.
And even when we listened to him, he was, excited about life in general. He wasn't I'm going to use, you know what I mean? There was fight in him.
You ready to call Todd?
Yeah.
Okay.
Turn the up a little bit.
Hello?
Yo.
What's going on?
What's up, dude?
You sound terrible.
Did you just wake up?
No, I've been up for hours. Too many hours.
Oh, turn that frown upside down, Todd. This is the first really sober call on Dopey.
I wish I could be excited about it. I'm just a little exhausted.
Sobriety is exhausting, isn't it?
It is. It's very exhausting. How you doing, Chris?
It's taxing. I'm good, man. How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm hanging in there. I'm sorry. I've been getting up at 3 or 4 o'clock every morning, and then napping throughout the day. It's easier there.
Tell us about what happened that everything changed. What happened?
Well, I of course abruptly lost my job.
Before you even answer, admit it to the Dopey Nation that the last time you were on Dopey, you were high on heroin.
All right, fine. God damn it, I was fucking high.
Oh my God.
Did I know?
Yeah, but that was the episode where you didn't say much, right?
Until I couldn't take it. You were sitting here, Todd. You, me, Jim, and Chris, and they're talking, and all I can do is watch you, because I've been high with you so many times, and you're fucking fading, and I'm like, what? And I just keep looking.
I was just so bored. I remember that. I was so bored, and then I got that jolt, where you get one of those leg spasms or whatever that happens sometimes.
Yeah.
And I was fucking falling out, and I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
This isn't good. I gotta get out of here. Because I was just so bored. I was falling asleep.
Yeah.
Are you saying Dopey was so boring? You were high, man. Give me a break. You fucking
No,
dick.
no. I mean, I just wasn't engaged in the conversation. You guys were talking about something. I don't remember what you guys were talking about.
Because you were high. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Of course I was. I've been high for the last 4 years.
Wait. So Todd, what? That's not clap.
Amen. No. He's being truthful.
Yeah.
It's great. All right, bud.
One a few times. All right. Well, Chris, I'll see you later.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, he's not going out there tonight.
I'm not going to be.
You're not going out tonight?
Yes, I feel so bad. It's literally the first weekend I've missed since I started there. But there's no one in the other place really. So I'll see you in 2 weeks. I'm sorry, dude.
We'll send Alex over.
Yo, send Alex over.
It's fine. I have nowhere to be, nowhere to go. I'll be here when you get back.
All right.
All right, everybody. All right, Dave, Chris, love you guys.
Be in touch.
Stay strong. All right.
All right, bud.
All right. Toodles.
Later.
Peace.
Yep.
So he doesn't say toodles. For those of you who don't know, this week was a terrible week for me. My very, 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 very close friend Todd, who was on Dopey 4 times probably.
No, there's a guy, the guy who runs Cormac, guy who runs Reddit. He posted every episode Todd was on. Did you see that?
No.
It's like 8 episodes.
He was on 8 times?
Something like that.
Anyway, Todd died a week ago, yesterday. So maybe 8 days ago he died. All I have to say is that we're talking... Todd wound up descending to some terrible, terrible, terrible places. Is the level okay?
Yeah, I'm just saying turn
No, I already did.
Oh, okay.
Terrible places.
Yeah.
I don't even want to say some of the end with him because he was not well.
Yeah.
And he was not happy. He was miserable. And he was at the end of his rope and nothing meant anything. His friends told me that when I would always ask you how he was doing and you would always say, he seems good, but he's bored and he wants to leave and I don't think he understands he has a life-threatening illness. And that's what I want to say. It's like I was in his life-threatening illness and I was around him for many, many, many turns of it.
Yeah.
And I never thought he was going to die. It's like Dave Marshall died and I was like, I felt sick. You know what I mean? I felt like someone punched me in the stomach and I was like, oh, this is terrible. Dave Marshall died. That Andrew died, and I was like, oh my God, this is so terrible. But when Todd died, like I died.
Yeah.
You know, I could not. It's just, he was such a good friend of mine.
Yeah. And
we were so close. And like, it's so sad to me that we're never going to see him again.
Yeah.
And like, he's always around me, you know, but I'll never see him again. And he never gets to have children, and he never gets to be sober, and he never gets to be free. Hello and welcome to Dopey, the podcast about drugs, addiction, and dumb shit. And I am Dave. And for those who aren't on Dopey social media, the worst thing that could have ever happened, and Chris relapsed and died. And here I am alone at my dad's with one microphone plugged into the mixer with GarageBand open on my computer recording Dopey, which I've never done. Every time we ever did it, Chris would record it on his computer and I would be able to futz around. And now this is going to be very weird. It's going to be very weird and it's obviously very, very, very sad. I've gotten a lot of messages and emails and texts and all sorts of communication from you guys, which made me feel great, except for the fact that Chris died, which just wrecked me. You know, it made me feel incredibly sad and incredibly angry and incredibly shocked. One of the things that I heard about from you guys a lot was how bad he sounded in the past episodes. And he did. He sounded terrible in the past episodes. I would say, I'd go back till probably the one where Todd died. That Chris was pretty good at that episode. and I don't know when he relapsed, but in my guess is that it happened around then, just because his reactions to things were so different. And we even talked about it in another episode where we talked about him not being accountable and people being concerned about him. I heard from graphic design Ryan, and I spoke to his sponsor Dylan, and I spoke to him, and the fact of the matter was that Chris was a very savvy liar. He was a very, very smart and charming person, and he didn't want to cop to the fact that he was using. He didn't want to stop using, I think, or maybe he was scared. I can't say what he was going through, and I'm sure it was very hard because sobriety was so important to him and recovery was so important to him that I'm sure there was a lot of pain and there was a lot of shame. And I think there was probably a little bit of a thrill too, because here he had finished his master's program and he was about to do his PhD, and he was getting high, and he had this beautiful girlfriend, and he had all of these good things, and he got to use at the same time. And I'm sure it was confusing for him, and I'm sure, I can't say. I do not know what he was going through or what was happening. I do know that, like everybody else who ever got high, Chris changed, and he became way more of a dick than he was when he wasn't. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was agitated all the time. He wasn't interested in things. Me and Chris basically were Dopey forever, and the reason it worked for a lot of reasons. It worked because it was super fun. It worked because me and him were great friends. It worked because we loved to talk. It worked because he laughed at my stupid shit. It worked because he was the worst addict ever and had been around so much recovery that he knew every aspect of it. He knew every aspect of just about any drug, and he knew every phase of recovery. The psychobabble talk, the easy talk, everything. And we managed to do a show that was like pretty interesting, which is why you guys are so involved, And also, I have to say that we did the show. At first, we did the show for each other, and it was super fun. And then we started to hear from you guys, but we kept doing it for each other. And the show was just me and him sitting together and talking. And it gave us so much joy and fun, and then the accoutrements to it were fun, like seeing how many downloads and seeing who we could get to come on and hearing from you guys and playing voicemails and reading stories, and all of that stuff became so fun. Now, I'm alone doing this, and it's very weird. I have a bunch of stuff that I figured I would try to do, and maybe we'll just jump into it, because as always, when I do Dopey, I am unprepared. And, I always would make fun of Chris and tell him that he should be better at riffing, being able to just talk while I figured out what we were going to do. Or I was very hard on Chris. And I never thought that he would die. And now I feel really bad that I was so hard on him on the show. But I always knew that we were so tight, and I knew that he knew I was playing. And I think a lot of it was shtick, because I really wanted the show to be interesting, and I wanted the show to be compelling, and I knew conflict drive the show, and I knew that if I made fun of him, it was funny. But sometimes I took it too far, and now I feel terrible, because that's a piece of our legacy, is that I was an asshole to Chris. And Chris was just the most amazing guy. He was incredibly sweet. He was incredibly funny. He was so smart. He was just, it's weird to say it, because he loved to shoot coke and heroin and, take, LSD and do whatever drugs he could. But Chris, probably like many of us, was a total innocent. And if you sat with him, you knew what an innocent he was and how sensitive he was and how a lot of stuff, like, it affected him differently than it affected other people. He almost didn't get it a lot of the time. Emotionally, he was a little bit disconnected. And he was so fun to hang out with, and he loved doing the show. He loved laughing, and he loved making fun of each other. And he loved it when you made fun of him because he knew that you knew him. When I made fun of him, he would laugh so much, and most of the time it wasn't too harsh. He would laugh so much. And I just feel like that was the secret to the show, was him laughing, and then all of the other stuff. And the truth was, I really believed everything Chris said. He really helped me get clean in the first place, and I called him constantly, and I did what he said, and it's one of the reasons that I just didn't notice his strange behavior. Today is Friday. He died on Tuesday. On Monday, we recorded that terrible last episode on Saturday. So by the time we sat down to record episode 142, unfortunately, the last episode that we were ever going to do with him, that we were ever going to do together, he wasn't ready, and then we turned on the Skype, and he looked like shit. And I have to say that he's kind of looked like shit for the last 5 weeks. When we went to do the Artie Lang episode, he was totally gray, and he looked like shit. But he always had a million excuse cards to play, and it was always exhaustion, and it was always that he was running around. So by the time we went to record episode 142, he looked at me with these tired eyes, and I've been in enough fights with Linda to know what it's like to feel so stressed out that you can't think straight. And he had that crazy look in his eyes, and I thought he was just distracted and upset, and now, of course, I know he was high. And he was like he was just gonna fuck around on the show, and I said to him, if you don't address what happened, I'm not gonna do the show. And the funny thing is, I bet you part of him considered coming clean and telling everybody that he had gotten high. And the funny thing is that if he had done that, instead of the worst Dopey episode that we ever made, except for probably this one, it would have been the best, because he would have been honest. And, after basically 3 years of making this show, he would have admitted that his program fell apart and that he needed help. And it could have really been amazing for you guys. And more than that, it probably would have saved his life.
I feel like so many people die these deaths, and to know that they're remembered in some capacity. I'm just assuming, you know what I mean? I don't have a child and, someone who's passed away that's dear to me, but to know that they're remembered a year later, 2 years later, 5 years later, that's comforting on a different level. It's weird for me 2 years later when something cool's happened in my life, randomly I'll remember them and be like, nothing's cool is happening in their life anymore. Do you know what I mean? I remember it usually in tandem with a positive event, a milestone of some sort of a development in my life. Do you know what I'm saying? A girlfriend, an apartment, a job, a career prospect, something like that happens, and that's a good thing. Then I think of people I knew who passed away because of this disease. That's when I get sad.
Stay strong, Dopey Nation. I love you all very much. And I love you, Chris.
I love you too, Dave. Toodles.
I want to take a walk around the world. I wonder would it do me any good? Until I get some money in my pocket, then I guess I'll just have to walk around my neighborhood. But I want to be good so bad. Wanna be so good, so bad, so bad. I wanna be good, so bad. Bad desire's all I ever had. And I wanna take a ride up in the sky. Watch this aeroplane just pass me by. And I wanna see a Lear jetliner take a dive, just to show all of these people what it means to be alive. But I wanna be good so bad. Wanna be so good, so bad, so bad. I wanna be good so bad. Bad desire's all I ever had. And my shadow's getting smaller and smaller. And it's time to where I stand. Shadow's getting smaller and smaller. And it's time to where I stand. And I wonder would they pay it any mind when I leave this busted city far behind. I'll take the high road, however far it winds, because peace and love are very, very, very hard to find. And I wanna be good so bad. Wanna be good so bad, so bad. I wanna be good so bad. Bad desire's all I ever had. Damn it, all these suckers make me mad. And it's all I ever had. And it's all I ever had. And these suckers make me mad, and I wanna call my dad. And it's all I ever had. 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 And these suckers make me mad.